Hi, I'm Ed Painter. Welcome to my home in Cohutta, Georgia. You're watching the Painter series on Delay and Block Productions.
Welcome back to the Painter series by Delay in Block Productions. In this episode, Ed takes you trackside on Norfolk Southern's Pocahontas and Virginia divisions in the summer of 1990. We'll explore some of his favorite locations in West Virginia and Virginia, showing a variety of freight trains and motive power on this historically busy line. We'll also return to the Piedmont Division in South Carolina between Ed's travels to and from the Pocahontas coal fields. The Pocahontas, or Pokey for short, was originally part of Norfolk and Western Railway's main line from Norfolk, Virginia to Columbus and Cincinnati, Ohio. It stretched from Bluefield, West Virginia to Williamson, West Virginia, and Bluefield, Virginia to Norton, Virginia. Primarily a coal-hauling railroad, the Pocahontas brought jobs and economic stability to Appalachia. Over time, thanks to stringent EPA restrictions from the Obama administration on coal mining and power generation, traffic has drastically declined. Back in 1990, as you'll see in this hour-long presentation, the Pocahontas division of Norfolk Southern was bustling with activity. On June 21st, Ed caught his first coal train at Ingleside, West Virginia, with a nice combination of GE models for motive power. The third unit, GE C36-7 number 8515, was built as part of an order of 31 locomotives for the N&W and was delivered to Norfolk Southern in June of 1982. It was retired in 2003 and survives to this day, pulling freight for MRS Logistica in Brazil. Although primarily a coal-hauling route, the Pokey was also a vital main line for general merchandise or time freight trains like this one. The line through the heart of Appalachia became even more important for the through freight business when N&W merged with Wabash and Nickel Plate in 1964. The Pocahontas division, along with the former Pennsy-Sandusky line, allowed the N&W to directly move freight between the eastern seaboard and the Midwest. This trio of SD40-2s sure sounded great as they passed by Ed, who was standing on the old Princeton Road overpass. As the westbound time freight continued to snake through the yard, Mr. Painter noticed the Radford Shifter, a local train that was powered by an EMD GP38 series model and a B32-8. Ed decided to move to the center of the yard, recording this eastbound coal train departing from the Grant Street Bridge. As the power was passing by, he noticed that there was a train crew swapping out on another coal train. He decided to grab a shot of this train at speed at Ada, West Virginia. The next day, Painter caught this slow-moving eastbound coal drag at Nemours, West Virginia, with another N&W painted C36-7 second out. This loaded train had a trio of manned SD40-2 pushers on the rear. All three were former N&W units running on home rails. Ed caught this westbound Silverside hopper train crossing the famous bridge at Coopers, West Virginia. About 30 minutes later, he recorded this pusher set running light over the bridge. Ed caught this eastbound coal train on a nice S-curve. For power, the train was assigned 2 C-39-8s and 1 C-30-7. This train also had manned pushers with a C-39-8 and a C-36-7 doing the honors. After the train cleared, Ed decided to document the east portal of the 698-foot-long Coopers Tunnel. The tunnel goes through Laurel Ridge and opened after the N&W realigned and straightened its main line at the turn of the century. The date on the western portal reads 1902. From 1919 until 1950, this section of the Pokey was electrified. This westbound time freight had a nice variety of former Southern and N&W motive power. As it rounds the S-curve, note the trackage to the right of the frame. That's the beginning of the Bluestone branch, and was once part of the N&W's original main line. Today, the Bluestone branch is essentially abandoned. Back in Bluefield, Painter recorded this panoramic shot of the yard looking east from the Mercer Street Bridge. The old Norfolk and Western steam locomotive coaling tower can be seen to the center of the yard. In 1990, Bluefield's population was just shy of 13,000 people. 40 years prior, the town's population was nearly double that figure, thanks to the coal and railroad industries, which were at their zenith at that time. Bluefield was the economic center of the region and was home to the Pocahontas Division headquarters. Not far from Bluefield, in the nearby community of Pocahontas, Virginia, laid the largest and richest deposit of bituminous coal in the world. Mining began in 1882 and exploded upon the N&W's arrival in the mid-1880s. N&W President Frederick Kimball described it as the most spectacular find on the continent and indeed perhaps the entire planet. Pocahontas coal fueled America's Industrial Revolution, and the N&W Railway was the linchpin in moving it all. Unfortunately, over time, Bluefield's growth was stunted, and the area is far from the industrial powerhouse it once was. On June 23rd, Ed caught this westbound hopper train arriving at Bluefield Yard with a pair of C-39-8s for motive power. East of Bluefield, Ed caught this eastbound time freight ducking under the US 460 overpass. The lead unit, a C-30-7, was accompanied by two SD-40-2s. With 9,000 horses, this train crew was in good shape to take on the tough mountainous terrain. Number 8004 was built in November of 1978 for the N&W, ending up on the Norfolk Southern roster in 1982, where it operated in mainline service for 21 years. It was retired by Norfolk Southern in 2003 and was sold to NREX for leasing service. NREX later sold the locomotive to America Latina Logistica in 2006. Now known as Rumo, the Brazilian railroad company now operates the C30-7 as locomotive number 7670. Back in Bluefield, Painter recorded the Radford shifter once again as it was departing the yard for its eastbound trip over the N&W Main. The second unit, a GP38-2, was still wearing the Southern Railway tuxedo scheme. It would be his last train at Bluefield before returning to his home in central South Carolina. Ed resumed filming trains from his backyard in July, with his first train being northbound Manifest 442. This colorful locomotive consist was typical of the time period, having 4 units and 4 different paint schemes. The Conrail C39-8 was a pleasant surprise. Ed was also surprised to see this NRHS Roanoke chapter passenger car on the rear of the train, accompanied by a caboose. About an hour later, he recorded southbound Triple Crown train number 247 with GP59 number 4638 for motive power. In August of 1990, Ed was in Liberty, South Carolina, at one of his favorite railfan locations to record northbound Manifest Freight Train 118 ducking under the Southern Railway signal bridges at speed. Leading the train was B30-7A1, number 3501, which Ed filmed previously in Episode 3 of the Painter series. This time it was running short hood forward. On September 5th, Ed caught northbound train 152 from his backyard, a daily Sheffield, Alabama to Linwood, North Carolina manifest. This train, in typical fashion, had a mid-train slave unit. What made it unusual is that the locomotive was a GE B32-8, which was not typically used in this type of service. The locomotive was built in November of 1989, less than a year before Ed recorded this train. The locomotive was initially used in TOFC and intermodal service, but over time was relegated to local service. It was retired in late 2016 and was sold to Progress Rail for scrap in March of 2017. Progress Rail scrapped the locomotive in Roanoke, Virginia, shortly thereafter. On September 8th of 1990, Ed returned to the Pocahontas Division of Norfolk Southern to record more trains in the heart of Appalachia. His first train was this time freight, led by a former Southern Railway SD40-2. This train was likely headed for Detroit, considering the large amount of auto parts boxcars in tow. At Narrows, Virginia, Ed caught a pair of C-36-7s on an eastbound coal train running at track speed. Back at Ingleside, Ed caught a trio of former Southern Railway high-hood SD40-2s in charge of another eastbound coal drag. A few minutes later, he caught a westbound hopper train with another all-ex-Southern consist for motive power. Ed jumped ahead of the train at Jug Neck, West Virginia, for this nice shot on an S-curve. Ed filmed the empty train arriving at Bluefield Yard from the old Princeton Road Bridge. After filming the empty hopper train, Ed recorded a nice pan shot of the locomotive servicing facility at Bluefield Yard. You can see the fuel racks and the sanding towers by the shop facility. Much of the infrastructure seen here is still in use by Norfolk Southern in 2023. Ed caught this nice trio of former N&W SD40-2s pulling a loaded train at Cooper's. It's interesting that he caught so many trios of purely Southern and purely N&W SD40-2s on this visit to the Pokey. This train also had manned pushers on the rear, which happened to consist of yet another trio of former Southern SD40-2s. This westbound time freight sounded great, exiting the tunnel over Cooper's Trestle with two ex-N&W SD40-2s sandwiching a high-hood GP50. That evening, Mr. Painter caught this eastbound time freight at the west end portal of Elkhorn Tunnel. Leading the train, paired with a standard C39-8, was a rare Norfolk Southern C39-8E. The E stands for Enhanced. Only 25 of these enhanced units were built and featured the wedged cab design as opposed to the original humpback design. They were meant to be an improvement over the original model. Elkhorn Tunnel is the longest double-track railroad tunnel in the United States, at 7,107 feet. It opened in 1950 and replaced the nearby Coaldale Tunnel. On September 9th, Ed returned to Elkhorn Tunnel, where he caught a variety of movements entering and exiting the west portal. After seeing a westbound train with silver sides and a light pusher move, Ed caught this eastbound loaded train working hard with an SD-60 and a C-39-8 leading into the tunnel. The train had a trio of manned pushers helping it over the grade. In Keystone, West Virginia, Ed recorded this westbound time freight with two C-39-8s for motive power. This slow-moving eastbound coal train was recorded crossing Elkhorn Creek at Mayberry, West Virginia. The pair of C-39-8s, sublettered for Norfolk Southern subsidiary Southern Railway, sure sounded great as they rolled by Ed's camera. Note the no trespassing sign still lettered for the N&W to the right of the bridge. At Upland, West Virginia, Ed found this train waiting for permission to head east. He decided to jump ahead to the east of Cooper's Tunnel, where he got a nice shot of the slow-moving time freight. Immediately behind the locomotives, you'll notice a large Southern Railway hogshead car. These 92-foot-long freight cars were originally used to transport tobacco, but were later converted to haul steel coils and large truck tires towards the end of their careers. The first car was built in 1961 at Southern's Coster Shops in Knoxville, Tennessee. One such car remains in preservation and stands as a static display at the Bramall, West Virginia Town Hall, not too far from Cooper's Tunnel. Ed decided to chase the train and caught it 2 more times west of Bluefield. Near the end of the train was another hogshead car, but in fresh Norfolk Southern paint. This train also had a trio of manned pushers working hard on the rear, and were all former Southern Railway 4-axle GEs. After his second trip to the Pokey in 1990, Ed returned to filming trains from his backyard in Central. Here we see northbound Manifest Freight Train 152 with a GP59 on the point of a 4-axle quartet. It was unusual to see 4 axles on this train, which is probably why Ed decided to film it. In the afternoon, the clouds had cleared up by the time Ed shot train 118 at Norris. Leading hammerhead style was another uncommon C39-8E. Back in Central, Ed recorded Triple Crown Train 247 with lone GP59 number 4633 running long hood forward. That afternoon, Norfolk and Western Class J steam locomotive 611 was making a deadhead move over the Piedmont between Atlanta, Georgia and Greenville, South Carolina. Ed chased the 611 and was able to get a nice shot at Liberty. In Greenville, 611 met up with Norfolk and Western Class A number 1218, which was being prepared for a weekend of upcoming excursions. The two locomotives were serviced at Greenville Yard, and you can actually see 1218 being loaded with coal as the 611 arrives. If you're a fan of the original Norfolk Southern Steam program, you'll want to watch out for future Painter Series episodes as we release them. Throughout the final 4 years of the program, Ed filmed both Norfolk and Western steam locomotives plus Southern Railway 4501 all over the southeastern region. We hope you enjoyed this edition of the Painter series, and we look forward to bringing you more episodes in the near future. Thank you for watching Delay in Block Productions. Until next time, happy railroading.